Some memories never fade. They have fur, bright eyes, and the gift of loving us without saying a word. Because every dog carries a story, and maybe a part of yours. Get ready to discover more than a breed. Discover a lifelong companion.
On the O'Sullivan farm in the green hills of County Kerry, Ireland, the cutting autumn wind of 1923 whistled through the golden barley fields. Inside the heated barn, under the flickering light of an oil lamp, something extraordinary was happening. Bridget, a majestic Kerry Blue Terrier with blue-grey coat like the stormy Atlantic sky, was giving birth to her first litter. Patrick O'Sullivan, a rough man with hands calloused from working the land, knelt beside the dog with a tenderness that contrasted with his severe appearance. Beside him, his daughter Moira, only 12 years old, held a clean towel, her green eyes shining with expectation and nervousness. "Daddy, is she okay?" whispered Moira, watching Bridget pant between contractions. "She is, my dear. Nature knows what it's doing," replied Patrick, his voice laden with the Irish accent that echoed generations of tradition. The first puppy emerged wrapped in the amniotic membrane, small and fragile. Patrick quickly cleaned it, and to both their surprise, the little being was completely black. There wasn't even a single blue hair on its tiny body. "Daddy, why is it all black?" "Bridget is blue and so is Finnegan," asked Moira, referring to the father of the puppies, a champion Kerry Blue that belonged to the neighbor. Patrick smiled, remembering the stories his own father had told him. "Ah, my girl, you're witnessing one of nature's greatest mysteries. All Kerry Blues are born black as the darkest night. But wait, you'll see magic happen in the coming months. 4 more puppies were born that cold night, all equally black as coal. Moira named them Shadow, Midnight, Raven, Storm, and the smallest of all, which she lovingly called Mystery, because there was something special about his eyes. They were as intensely blue as the deep waters of Irish lakes. 3 weeks had passed since the birth of the puppies. The Irish spring was beginning to awaken the earth from its winter sleep, and with it, something magical began to happen to the little Kerry Blues. Dr. Seamus McCarthy, the local veterinarian and family friend, made his monthly visit to the farm. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and kind eyes that reflected decades of caring for animals. When he knelt to examine the puppies, his eyes widened with fascination. "Patrick, come see this," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with scientific excitement. Mystery, the smallest of the puppies, showed the first signs of transformation. Small silver strands were beginning to appear around his ears and muzzle. It was as if someone had delicately brushed liquid silver over the black coat. "It's the melanin," explained Dr. McCarthy, adjusting his glasses while carefully examining the puppy. "The Kerry Blue gene contains a unique characteristic. It produces a special enzyme that gradually dilutes the melanin in the coat. It's a fascinating process that can take up to 3 years to complete entirely." Moira listened attentively, holding Mystery in her small hands. The puppy nestled against her chest, his bright blue eyes fixed on hers. "It's like he's transforming into something magical," she murmured. "In a way, that's exactly what it is," smiled Dr. McCarthy. "This is one of the few cases in nature where we can literally see genetics in action. Each day, each week, he'll become a little different. The melanin is being broken down by a modified Tyrosinase enzyme, creating this progressive dilution that transforms black into blue." Patrick shook his head in wonder. "My father always said Kerry Blues were dogs blessed by the ancient Irish druids. Now I understand why." As the puppies grew, Dr. McCarthy became a regular visitor, meticulously documenting the changes occurring in each of them. He brought genetics books from Dublin and even corresponded with researchers in London who studied the genetic peculiarities of Kerry Blue Terriers. "Look," he explained on a rainy afternoon, spreading photographs and diagrams over the O'Sullivans' kitchen table. "What happens is extraordinary from a scientific point of view. The gene responsible for the blue color in Kerry Blues is actually a complex modifier gene." Moira, now 13 and even more fascinated by the dogs, studied the images intently. Mystery, now 3 months old, was in her lap, his coat showing an impressive mixture of black, silver, and the first touches of blue-gray. "Melanin," continued Dr. McCarthy, "is the pigment that gives color to the coat. In Kerry Blues, there's a genetic mutation that affects the production of an enzyme called tyrosinase. This enzyme, in its normal form, helps in melanin production. But in Kerry Blues, it has been modified." He drew a simple diagram on paper. "Initially, the puppies produce melanin normally. That's why they're born black. But as they grow, this modified enzyme begins to work, literally diluting the existing melanin. It's as if the dog's own body were a chemical laboratory, gradually altering the coat color." Patrick, who was listening while repairing a harness, looked up. And this only happens in Kerry Blues? Mainly, replied Dr. McCarthy. Some other breeds have similar variations, but none as dramatic as Kerry Blues. It's a characteristic that was fixed in the breed through careful selection over generations here in Ireland. On a cold winter night, when Mystery turned 6 months old, Patrick decided to tell Moira the family legend about Kerry Blue Terriers. The two were sitting by the fireplace, with Mystery sleeping at Moira's feet, his coat now displaying a beautiful mixture of blue-grey tones with silver reflections. Once upon a time, Patrick began, his voice taking on the mystical tone of Irish storytellers. In ancient times, when druids still walked these lands, there was a Spanish ship that was wrecked on the coasts of Kerry. Moira settled more comfortably in the armchair, her eyes shining with anticipation. Among the survivors was an extraordinary dog, a dog with a coat blue like the deep sea and eyes that reflected the wisdom of the ancients. The locals had never seen anything like it. This dog mated with the local terrier bitches, and thus the Kerry Blue lineage was born. But Daddy, interrupted Moira, blue dogs would be born blue, not black. Patrick smiled. Ah, but here's the mystery, my dear. The druid said that the puppies of these special dogs would be born with the color of the darkest night, but would gradually reveal their true nature, the color of the sea, the sky, and ancient wisdom. It was a way to protect the puppies, disguising their special nature until they were ready to reveal their true identity. Mystery stirred in his sleep as if dreaming. Moira petted him gently. Dr. McCarthy explained the science, continued Patrick, but I like to think there's a bit of magic too. After all, how do you explain that only here in the hills of Kerry such a unique breed developed? At 8 months, Mystery had transformed into a stunning young Kerry Blue. His coat displayed that characteristic blue-grey of the breed, with silver reflections that shone under sunlight. His personality had developed along with his appearance. He was intelligent, brave, and incredibly loyal to Moira. Dr. McCarthy suggested they take Mystery to his first dog show in Dublin. He's a perfect example of the breed's transformation, he argued, and it would be educational for other people to see this process. The trip to Dublin was an adventure for Moira, who had never left County Kerry. The big city, with its tall buildings and busy streets, was a completely different world from the green hills of the farm. At the show, Mystery caused a sensation. Experienced judges and breeders gathered around him, marveled by the perfect illustration of Kerry Blues' genetic transformation. Observe, said the head judge, Sir Reginald Worthington, a distinguished Englishman who had bred Kerry Blues for 30 years. This young dog perfectly represents what makes our breed so special. At 8 months, we can see the melanin still being diluted. See how some hairs still maintain darker tones at the base, while the tips already show the true blue. He pointed to different areas of Mystery's coat. In a few more months, this transformation will be complete. But even then, if we observe carefully, we'll always be able to detect subtle variations in tonality that show this continuous process. Moira felt proud, but also anxious. There were so many important people looking at Mystery, asking technical questions she didn't always know how to answer. Did you breed this dog? Asked an elegant lady, Lady Margaret Fitzgerald, one of Ireland's most respected breeders. Not exactly, replied Moira shyly. He was born on our farm. His mother is Bridget, and you're an O'Sullivan from Kerry, exclaimed Lady Margaret, her face lighting up. I know the lineage. Your dogs have the true Irish genetics. This little fellow is magnificent. As Mystery grew, Dr. McCarthy continued documenting his transformation. He had established correspondence with geneticists from Edinburgh University who were conducting the first scientific studies on canine genetics. We're on the threshold of a new era, he explained during one of his visits, now bringing more sophisticated equipment. With better microscopes, we can actually examine hair follicles and see how the melanin structure is changing. He showed Moira, now 15, samples of Mystery's hair collected at different ages under a portable microscope. Look here. He pointed to a sample from when Mystery was 3 months old. The melanin is densely concentrated, creating the black color. But in this sample from 6 months, he switched slides. We can see how the melanin granules are becoming smaller and more dispersed. It's like they're dissolving, asked Moira, fascinated. Exactly. The modified Tyrosinase enzyme in Kerry Blues literally breaks down melanin granules into smaller particles. When light hits these smaller, more dispersed particles, it's reflected differently, creating the blue-gray appearance. Dr. McCarthy pulled out another diagram. It's similar to what happens with peacock feathers or blue butterfly wings. The color doesn't come from actual blue pigments, but from how light is reflected by the microscopic structure. Mystery, now almost a year old, lay patiently while they examined samples of his coat. His temperament had become even calmer and more dignified, as if he knew he was special. Mystery's success at the Dublin show opened doors. He was invited to participate in the Irish National Kerry Blue Terrier Championship, the most prestigious event for the breed in all of Ireland. Moira, now 16, had become an expert on the breed. She had studied every aspect of Kerry Blues, their history, genetics, temperament, and competition standards. Mystery was not just her companion, but her life project. The championship would be held in Cork, and breeders from all over Europe would come to participate. For a farm girl from Kerry, it was intimidating, but Moira was determined. The night before the competition, she carefully brushed Mystery, admiring how his transformation was almost complete. At 18 months, he displayed that perfect Kerry Blue, neither too light nor too dark, with a silky texture that reflected light like polished metal. "You know you're special, don't you?" she murmured to him while brushing. Mystery looked at her with his deep blue eyes, as if understanding every word. The competition was fierce. There were dogs from champion lineages from all over Europe, each representing decades of careful, selective breeding. But when Mystery entered the ring, there was a murmur of admiration from the audience. The judge, Dr. Heinrich Steinberg from Germany, one of the world's greatest Kerry Blue experts, examined Mystery meticulously. He checked structure, movement, temperament, and especially the quality and color of the coat. "This young dog," he announced to the audience, "represents the perfection of genetic transformation that makes Kerry Blues unique. Observe how the melanin dilution was complete and uniform, resulting in this sublime blue color. This is a textbook example of the breed's genetics." Mystery won not only his category, but was chosen as best of breed, defeating much more experienced competitors. Mystery's victory attracted international attention. Dr. James Watson, not the famous DNA discoverer but an animal geneticist of the same name, came from Cambridge specifically to study Mystery and his lineage. "I'm conducting research on natural genetic mutations in dogs," he explained during an extended visit to the O'Sullivan farm. The Kerry Blue represents one of the clearest examples of how natural and artificial selection can create unique characteristics. Dr. Watson brought even more advanced equipment, including a special camera that could photograph the coat under different light spectra. "Look at this," he said, showing photographs of Mystery taken under ultraviolet light. "Under this light, we can see patterns in melanin distribution that are invisible to the naked eye." The images revealed an intricate pattern of gradations in Mystery's coat, like a topographic map of genetic transformation. "Each hair follicle tells a story," continued Dr. Watson. "We can see exactly how and when the modified Tyrosinase enzyme acted on each individual hair." Moira absorbed every word. She had decided to study veterinary medicine, inspired by her experience with Mystery and Dr. McCarthy's work. "The most fascinating thing," said Dr. Watson, "is that this process never stops completely. Even in adult dogs of 5 or 6 years, we can detect subtle, continuous changes in coat color. It's as if the transformation were a living process, always evolving." At 3 years old, Mystery had reached his complete maturity. His color was stabilized in the perfect Kerry Blue, but as Dr. Watson had predicted, subtle changes continued occurring. Under certain lights, silver reflections danced in his coat, creating an almost mystical effect. Moira, now at university studying veterinary medicine, returned home for summer vacation with big news. Mystery would be mated with Siobhan, a champion Kerry Blue from France, in an attempt to produce the next generation of exemplary dogs. "It's fascinating to think," she said to her father, while watching Mystery play in the field, "that his puppies will be born black, exactly as he was born. All this transformation will begin again." Patrick smiled, remembering the night 3 years before when he had witnessed Mystery's birth. "It's the cycle of life, my dear. Each generation relives the miracle." When it came time for mating, breeders and scientists from all over Europe came to observe. The union of two such pure lineages promised to produce exceptional puppies. Dr. McCarthy, now older but still fascinated by Kerry Blues, made sure to be present. "In more than 40 years caring for these dogs," he said, "I still marvel at this process. It's a constant reminder of how mysterious and beautiful nature can be." 2 months later, Siobhan gave birth to a litter of 6 puppies at the O'Sullivan farm. As predicted, all were born completely black, small balls of dark fur that suggested nothing about the transformation awaiting them. Moira, now a graduated veterinarian specializing in animal genetics, documented each birth with the scientific precision she had learned at university, but with the love and admiration she had felt since childhood. "Look at them," she whispered, holding one of the puppies, a female she named Luna. "In a few months they'll begin to show the first signs of transformation. It's like watching evolution in action." Dr. Watson had returned specifically to study this new generation. With even more advanced equipment, he could detect the first signs of Tyrosinase enzyme activity, even in puppies of just 1 week. "Incredible," he murmured, examining hair samples under an electron microscope. "Even in the youngest puppies, we can see the molecular structures that indicate the presence of the modifier gene." Mystery watched his puppies with the paternal pride typical of Kerry Blues. His own transformation was complete, but in his puppies, the miraculous cycle would begin again. The fame of Mystery's lineage spread throughout the scientific world. Universities from various countries requested DNA samples to study the genetic mechanism behind Kerry Blue transformation. Dr. Sarah Chen, a molecular geneticist from Harvard, came to spend a month in Ireland studying Mystery's dogs. "We're on the threshold of completely understanding this process," she explained to Moira during one of their long research sessions. "With new DNA sequencing techniques, we can map exactly which genes are involved." She showed Moira complex diagrams that looked like colored road maps. "We discovered it's not just one gene, but an entire genetic cascade. The main gene activates other genes, which in turn produce different enzymes, all working together to create this unique transformation." Mystery's puppies, now 3 months old, were beginning to show the first signs of change. Luna, especially, displayed distinct silver strands around her ears. "It's like watching a molecular clock in operation," said Dr. Chen, photographing every microscopic change. "Each follicular cell has its own internal timeline, activating the transformation at the exact moment determined by the genes." Despite all scientific advances, some aspects of Kerry Blue transformation remained mysterious. Dr. Chen discovered that not all dogs with the same genetic profile transformed exactly the same way. "There are environmental factors we don't completely understand yet," she admitted during an international conference via video made from the O'Sullivan farm. "Diet, sun exposure, even stress can influence how and when the transformation occurs. It's a complex interaction between genetics and environment." Moira had observed this firsthand. Luna, who spent more time outdoors, developed slightly different tones from her siblings who preferred to stay indoors. "It's as if each dog were a unique experiment of nature," she reflected, petting Luna, who at 6 months displayed a beautiful mixture of black, silver, and the first blue tones. Mystery, now 4 years old, had become not just a champion, but an ambassador of the breed. Visitors from around the world came to the farm to see him and better understand the Kerry Blue phenomenon. Patrick, now in his 50s, decided it was time to officially pass the breeding responsibility to Moira. The O'Sullivan farm had become a world-recognized center for Kerry Blue research and breeding. "You've transformed our small farm into a special place," he told Moira on a sunny afternoon, watching Mystery and Luna play in the field. "Your grandfather would be proud." Moira had expanded her research, now working with universities in 5 different countries. She developed new methods to predict and monitor Kerry Blue transformation, contributing significantly to scientific knowledge of canine genetics. "Now you know, Daddy," she said, "the more I learn about the science behind this transformation, the more magical it seems to me. It's as if nature were an artist, painting each dog uniquely." Dr. McCarthy, now retired but still a regular visitor, agreed. "In all my years of practice, I've never seen anything as consistently beautiful as Kerry Blue transformation. It's science and art combined." Luna, now 1 year old, had transformed into a stunning Kerry Blue. Her color was slightly different from Mystery's, a bit lighter, with more pronounced silver reflections. Dr. Chen, who had become a close friend of the family, made a surprising discovery during her continued studies. "We discovered there's not just one, but at least 3 different variants of the transformer gene," she announced during her spring visit. "Each variant produces a slightly different nuance in the final color." She showed Moira detailed genetic mappings of Mystery, Luna, and other Kerry Blues from the lineage. Mystery has the classic variant, which produces the traditional Kerry Blue. Luna has a variant that results in more silver reflections, and we found a third variant in some European dogs that produces slightly darker tones. This discovery would revolutionize Kerry Blue breeding, allowing breeders to predict more accurately the characteristics that would appear in each litter. The research conducted at the O'Sullivan farm began to have impact beyond the canine world. Scientists studying other genetic conditions in humans began to take interest in the mechanisms discovered in Kerry Blues. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a medical geneticist from Barcelona, came to study the dogs to better understand certain rare human conditions affecting pigmentation. "Kerry Blues can teach us a lot about how genes control progressive changes in physical characteristics," he explained to Moira. "There are human conditions where pigmentation changes with age in similar ways." The O'Sullivan farm had become unofficially an international genetic research center. Moira had to hire assistants to help with all the projects and visitors. Mystery, now 5 years old, seemed to understand his importance. He behaved with dignity during all research sessions, as if knowing he was contributing to scientific knowledge. "He's a true ambassador of science," commented Dr. Rodriguez, observing how Mystery patiently allowed them to collect samples and take measurements. Moira decided it was important to share the knowledge they were acquiring with a broader audience. She began writing articles for popular science magazines and giving talks at schools. "It's fascinating to see how children react when we explain that Mystery was born completely black," she told her father after a presentation at a local school. She had developed a presentation with photographs showing Mystery from puppy to adult, perfectly illustrating the gradual transformation. "Children ask the best questions," she continued. "One girl asked asked me if Mystery remembers when he was black and if he feels the transformation happening. These questions made her reflect on aspects of transformation that science couldn't yet answer. How do dogs experience this change? Are there physical sensations associated with melanin restructuring? Dr. Chen was working on research to try to answer some of these questions, studying the neural patterns of dogs during transformation. Luna was mated with a champion Kerry Blue from Germany, and the expectation for the new litter was enormous. It would be the third generation of Mystery's lineage, and everyone wanted to see how the newly discovered genetic variants would manifest. The litter was born on a rainy March morning. 5 puppies, all perfectly black, but with subtle differences that only trained eyes could detect. "Look here," said Dr. Chen, examining the newborn puppies with specialized equipment. "We can detect differences in melanin density even in the first days. This puppy here will probably develop the silver reflections variant, while this other one shows signs of the classic variant." Moira named the puppies with names reflecting their scientific heritage: Darwin, Mendel, Tesla, Curie, and Einstein. Each represented a unique genetic combination, a new variation on the theme of blue transformation. Mystery, now grandfather, watched the puppies with paternal interest. At 5 years old, he himself continued changing subtly, developing deeper reflections in his blue coat. A BBC documentary team came to film the story of Mystery and the O'Sullivan farm. The documentary, titled The Blue Metamorphosis, The Genetic Mystery of Kerry Blue Terriers, would be shown internationally. "This is one of the most fascinating stories of science and nature we've ever encountered," said the director James Whitmore during filming. "The combination of Irish tradition, scientific discovery, and human-animal connection is extraordinary." Filming lasted 3 months, documenting not only the transformation of the youngest puppies, but also all the scientific research and international impact of Moira's work. Mystery became a natural star in front of the cameras. His dignified presence and expressive eyes captivated everyone who saw him. "It's as if he knows he's representing his entire breed," commented Moira during a filming break. The documentary included interviews with scientists from around the world who had been influenced by Kerry Blue research, showing how the discovery had impacted fields as diverse as human medicine, evolutionary biology, and molecular genetics. The BBC documentary was a worldwide success, winning several awards and bringing even more international attention to Moira's work and the O'Sullivan farm. Dublin University offered Moira a position as Professor of Veterinary Genetics, but she preferred to continue her work on the farm, establishing partnerships with universities worldwide. "This is where it all began," she said during the ceremony, where she received an honorary doctorate from Cork University. Mystery and his lineage belong to the hills of Kerry. Mystery, now 6 years old, accompanied her to the ceremony, causing a sensation among the academics present. His transformation was complete, but his scientific importance continued growing. Luna's puppies, now 8 months old, showed even more varied transformations than predicted. Darwin developed an almost indigo blue color, deeper than any Kerry Blue ever recorded. Mendel displayed silver reflections so pronounced that his coat seemed to shine under sunlight. Tesla showed a more gradual transformation, with layers of different tones creating an almost iridescent effect. The O'Sullivan farm had transformed into an internationally recognized research center. Scientists from molecular genetics, evolutionary biology, and veterinary medicine made regular pilgrimages to the Kerry Hills to study Mystery's lineage. Dr. Chen established a permanent laboratory in one of the farm's outbuildings, equipped with the most modern genetic analysis instruments. "Nowhere else in the world," she said in English, "can we study this phenomenon with such purity and continuity as here." Moira had become a world authority on canine genetics, publishing dozens of scientific papers and being invited to international conferences, but her heart remained with the farm's dogs. "Every morning when I see Mystery in the field," she said in an interview for Nature Genetics, "I remember that all our scientific understanding began simply by observing a black puppy transform into blue. The most advanced science still begins with careful observation." Mystery, now patriarch of a scientific dynasty, continued being the central focus of research. At 6 years old, he had not only completed his transformation, but developed color nuances that continued evolving subtly. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a young geneticist from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, made a discovery that would completely change the understanding of Kerry Blue transformation. "It's not just the genes," she announced during a satellite conference transmitted directly from the farm laboratory. "We discovered there's a complex epigenetic component. Genes are turned on and off by environmental factors in ways we never imagined." Her research showed that factors like light exposure, diet, social interactions, and even the dog's emotional state could influence how and when transformation genes were activated. "Mystery, for example," she continued, developed unique coloration patterns that correspond exactly to periods of his life when he was happiest and most socially engaged. It's as if joy literally influenced genetic expression. This discovery opened entirely new fields of research, connecting genetics, neurology, and animal behavior in revolutionary ways. Moira looked at Mystery, who was lying patiently during the presentation, his blue eyes shining with intelligence. "You were always special," she murmured to him, "but I never imagined you were this special." The research success in Ireland led to the establishment of similar centers in other countries. Universities in Germany, Japan, the United States, and Brazil created research programs focused on Kerry Blue genetics, all coordinated from the O'Sullivan farm. "We've become a worldwide research network," explained Moira during a video conference with researchers from 5 continents. "But everything still centers here, in the hills where it all began." Mystery had become not just a famous dog, but a global scientific icon. His image appeared in genetics textbooks worldwide, and his story inspired a new generation of veterinary geneticists. The third-generation puppies, now young adults, had been distributed to research centers around the world, each carrying the unique genes of Mystery's lineage to new environments and studies. "It's incredible to think," said Patrick, now in his 60s, "that our little Mystery influenced world science. Your grandfather wouldn't believe it." Kerry Blue research began to have direct applications in human medicine. Dr. Rodriguez had identified parallels between the dog's transformation and certain rare genetic conditions in humans. "The mechanisms we discovered in Kerry Blues helped us develop new treatments for vitiligo and other pigmentation conditions," he explained during a farm visit. "The gene therapy we developed is based directly on what we learned about the dog's tyrosinase enzymes." Mystery, now 7 years old, had literally contributed to saving human lives. Samples of his DNA were being used in pharmaceutical laboratories to develop innovative medications. "I never thought," said Moira, hugging Mystery, "that when you were born that cold night a scientific hero was being born." The ethical implications of the research were constantly discussed. International animal ethics committees regularly visited the farm to ensure all studies were conducted with the highest standard of animal care. "Mystery and his descendants are not just study objects," emphasized Moira. "They are our partners in scientific discovery. They deserve all the respect and care we can offer." Curie, one of the third-generation puppies, gave birth to the first litter of the 4th generation. Expectations were enormous. 4 generations of detailed genetic documentation would allow unique longitudinal studies in science. The 6 puppies were born under the watchful eyes of an international research team. Each birth was documented in high-resolution video with genetic samples collected in the first minutes of life. "This is the generation that will allow us to completely understand the heritability of the different variants," said Dr. Chen, now scientific director of the International Kerry Blue Research Center. Mystery, proud great-grandfather, watched the puppies with interest. At 7 years old, he had developed a patriarchal dignity, supervising his large family with canine wisdom. The puppies were named after contemporary scientists: Hawking, Sagan, Goodall, Watson, Crick, and Rosalind. Each represented the continuation of the most important scientific lineage in modern canine genetics. As Mystery aged, new aspects of his genetic transformation were discovered. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a veterinary gerontologist from Japan, studied how the transformation process continued even in advanced age. "We discovered that the modified tyrosinase activity never stops completely," she explained. "Even at 8 years old, Mystery still shows microscopic changes in his pigmentation." This discovery had important implications for the study of aging in general. Kerry Blues could provide clues about how to maintain healthy genetic activity during aging. Mystery, despite his 8 years, remained active and alert. His coat had developed even more sophisticated nuances, with reflections that changed subtly with light and seasons. "He's aging like fine wine," commented Moira, watching him play with his great-grandchildren. "Each year adds new complexity to his beauty." The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences awarded Moira and her team the International Genetics Prize, recognizing their revolutionary contributions to understanding complex genetic inheritance. "This prize belongs not only to us," said Moira in her acceptance speech, "but to Mystery and all the Kerry Blues who made this research possible. They are the true heroes of science." Mystery accompanied her to the ceremony in Stockholm, causing a sensation among the scientists and media present. At 8 years old, he remained an impressive figure, his presence commanding respect and admiration. The King of Sweden, a known dog lover, made a point of personally meeting Mystery. "I never thought I'd meet a dog that changed the course of science," he said. gently petting Mystery's blue-silver head. Conscious of Mystery's age, Moira established a complete genetic bank to preserve his unique lineage. DNA samples, cells, and tissues were carefully preserved in laboratories on 3 continents. Mystery won't live forever, she said in an emotional meeting with the international team, but his genetic contribution will be preserved for future generations of scientists. The Dublin Natural History Museum created a permanent exhibition about Mystery and Kerry Blue research. Visitors from around the world came to see the documented history of the most famous transformation in canine genetics. Mystery, despite his age, still made special appearances at the museum, always accompanied by Moira. His presence transformed numbers and scientific graphs into a real and touching experience. When children see Mystery in person, observed the museum curator, they understand that science isn't just about laboratories and experiments. It's about curiosity, observation, and love of nature. Moira began training a new generation of researchers, transmitting not only scientific knowledge, but also the philosophy of respectful research she had developed with Mystery. The most important science, she told her students, happens when we respect our research subjects as partners, not as study objects. Mystery, now 9 years old, had become a teacher in his own right. Young researchers came from world universities to learn scientific observation simply by living with him. He teaches us patience, said Dr. Maria Santos, a young geneticist from Brazil. Watching Mystery, we learn that true scientific understanding takes time and requires careful and respectful observation. The methods developed at the O'Sullivan farm were being applied to the study of other canine breeds and even other animal species. The Mystery method, as it became known, combined advanced technology with holistic behavioral observation. At 10 years old, Mystery had clearly entered his senior phase but remained mentally alert and physically active. His coat had developed even richer tones, with silver strands that created unique patterns under different lights. Moira, now in her 40s, began writing her memoirs, documenting not only the science but the emotional journey of growing up alongside the world's most scientifically important dog. Mystery taught me that the best science comes from love, she wrote. Every discovery we made was born from loving curiosity about this extraordinary being who entered our lives on a cold autumn night. The 5th generation was being born, puppies who carried Mystery's genes but lived in a world transformed by his scientific contribution. Research centers in 30 countries now studied Kerry Blue genetics. He changed not only our understanding of one dog breed, reflected Dr. Chen, but our entire approach to genetic research. His influence will be felt for generations. On the morning of his 11th birthday, Mystery was lying in the same field where he had played as a puppy. The Irish spring sun illuminated his coat, creating reflections that seemed to contain all the wisdom of an extraordinary life. Moira sat beside him, as she had done thousands of times over the years. Around them, the green hills of Kerry extended to the horizon, unchanged by time and the fame that had touched this small farm. "You know you changed the world, don't you?" she murmured, stroking his head, now graying at the edges. Mystery looked at her with his deep blue eyes, which had seen laboratories on 5 continents and inspired discoveries that would save human lives. 5th-generation puppies played around them, small black balls that in months would begin their own magical transformation. The cycle would continue, as it had continued for generations before Mystery. But now, with the scientific knowledge he had made possible, the transformation never stops, does it? Said Moira, watching the puppies. Not just the coat transformation, but the transformation of knowledge, understanding the world. Mystery closed his eyes, warmed by the sun and the love of the human family that had accompanied him on this extraordinary journey. His transformation from a black puppy into a worldwide scientific icon was complete, but his legacy would continue transforming through future generations. In the hills of Kerry, where it all began, the magic of genetics continued its eternal dance. Puppies black as the darkest night, destined to gradually reveal their blue secrets to the wondering world. And somewhere between science and magic, between knowledge and mystery, Mystery's story would continue inspiring scientists and dog lovers for generations to come. The wind whispered through the fields, carrying with it the legacy of an extraordinary dog who proved that nature's greatest mysteries often reveal themselves in the simplest places to those who know how to observe with love, patience, and infinite scientific curiosity.